Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today, I'm here at the end of Season 3 of SpongeBob SquarePants with SpongeBob Meets the Strangler and Pranks-a-Lot. I can't believe we're already here at the end of Season 3! It feels like I just started this season, so it's weird to already be at the end. Good thing that this season ends pretty nicely. Well, I guess I just spoiled my opinions, didn't I? Oh well. As always, gotta say thank you to everyone watching today and to everyone who's been leaving comments and the like. Love y'all. And now, let's just get right into it. SpongeBob Meets the Strangler is a classic SpongeBob SquarePants episode. It's also an episode that manages to break out of the late Season 3 obscurity, which is great for me because I really like this episode. There's a lot of reasons I like this episode, but I think the main one is that SpongeBob is simply excellent here. You've seen me talk about elements of the persona of his I like to call Troll Bob for 3 whole seasons now, but this episode really takes the cake when it comes to this side of SpongeBob, and I'll talk about it, but not quite yet. This episode starts off really well with the clocking in gag. I love the whole freeze frame aspect of it. I'll say I'm definitely a SpongeBob when it comes to clocking in. I will absolutely be earning those extra few cents by clocking in 2 minutes early, thank you very much. SpongeBob being so enthusiastic about his job is something I'll never get tired of, even if it does remind me of the banes of capitalism. Okay. I'm getting off my soapbox now, you can put the tomatoes down, but I said what I said, and that's all there is to it. The police bit is funny enough, and I love the endless handcuffing. I also like that it's Squidward who recognizes the Strangler, because see, now I'm thinking about why Squidward knows this. I guess he's a very well-read guy? Maybe he watches the news a lot. He seems like the type. See, it's throwaway lines like these that always make me put my overthinking cap on and want to ask a million questions about the world of Bikini Bottom. The cops in this episode are also extremely unhelpful, just like real life. Sorry, really couldn't help myself on that one. It was right there. I promise, no more soapbox moments. Probably. But anyway, yeah, they're jerks to just leave SpongeBob like that when it's obvious a wanted criminal is about to be after him. But I mean, SpongeBob handles the situation without their help anyway, so... And yes, I am saying he handles the situation, Olivia Pope style, as in, purposely manages it. We'll get to that later. The montage of SpongeBob trying to find someone to help him is full of some great visual gags, like Larry turning into a lobster on a plate. This sequence reminds me a lot of Your Shoes Untied, with SpongeBob not able to find anyone to help him. This episode also does a great job at building comedic tension, like the moment when SpongeBob says he's got to get out of town, and the Strangler is there, reading the newspaper, and even though it's obvious who he is, the timing is still perfect when he puts the paper down and is side by side with his wanted poster. This part of the episode is also the beginning of what we'll be seeing for the remainder of these 11 minutes, with the Strangler getting close to strangling SpongeBob but being stopped at the last moment. This episode is macabre in many ways, considering the entire plot is about SpongeBob being almost killed by a maniac, and the episode is pretty clear about this being what the Strangler wants to do, given his concern over too many witnesses. Moving on, I love the whole back and forth between SpongeBob and the Strangler as SpongeBob hires him to be his bodyguard. The atmosphere in the episode, or in this part, where they both laugh evilly is great, and I love how the lights just suddenly turn back on at the end of that. And the errands bit is funny too, with SpongeBob being way too indecisive to pick out some paper towels, and him somehow not recognizing that his pants are his pants, all with the Strangler seething in the background. The paper towels bit is also just really relatable. I'm so indecisive sometimes. That reminds me of that one scene in Dumped, which I'm surprised about because I don't usually think about that episode on account of me not liking it at all. Then we finally get to SpongeBob's Pineapple, where we hear a couple other Freudian slips, which I'll discuss later. And then they get into the utter hilarious that is SpongeBob losing his key. The Strangler gets angrier and angrier, and then we get into the really funny moment, which is when SpongeBob's cleats, which, like, why is he even wearing those, get stuck in the Strangler's eyes, and the guy just runs around screaming for hours. And then, of course, we get the reveal that there was a spare key under the mat the whole time, and the Strangler comes this close to losing it, complete with some great visuals. After this, finally, the Strangler and SpongeBob are alone. Tension is rising and building, and then... surprise party! Yep, that clocking in gag from earlier came back around for this joke, which I love that they called back to that, and I love how many people showed up to the party too. And then of course, just because the Strangler can't have anything in this episode, we get another surprise party. I love how utterly defeated the Strangler is by this point. Can't a guy just strangle someone in peace? It's kind of very wholesome that all these people were down for not one, but 2 parties though, especially after the mess that was Party Pooper Pants. I also love the animations of everyone dancing at the party, especially Squidward. It's those small touches like that I love. And then, of course, we've got the ending of the episode where we get a very The Smoking Peanut-esque gag about Patrick thinking that he's the Strangler, and the Strangler finally having had enough of this entire day, revealing his identity to SpongeBob. The running gag of the party returns once more, and then we get a hilarious role reversal between SpongeBob and the Strangler as the Strangler shouts that he is the one being chased by a maniac. We get a pretty funny chase scene between the two of them that ends with the Strangler in jail, completely fed up with everything, and SpongeBob in shock that his bodyguard was the Strangler. Poor Sponge, they were really making a connection, you know? And then the ending stinger of the episode is great, with Patrick in jail too. I like to think that right after the episode cuts to black, the Strangler just loses every little bit of sanity he has left. Alright now, I'm sure y'all have noticed that I've been saying I'll come back to certain things all during this review, such as the Freudian slips, or the way SpongeBob handles the situation. And perhaps you've noticed that I've talked about a lot in this episode, but I haven't really talked about SpongeBob, even though I said at the beginning of this review that I love this episode because of SpongeBob. So, what gives? Well, what gives is that there's another way you can read this episode, one that makes it a hell of a lot more entertaining. To go back to the Freudian slip comment, let me remind you of the line that brought that comment up. SpongeBob, after praising his bodyguard and helping him come up with the right word to use, says, "Don't mention it, Strangler. I mean bodyguard." Yeah, that's right. This is the real reason I love this episode so much, why this is peak Trollbob, because our boy knew who the Strangler was the entire time. And once you realize that, then you see the entire episode differently. Or at least I did. Let me run it back to a few jokes and clues, represented in each of the images on the screen now, so that you can see what I mean. First off, when SpongeBob first meets the Strangler in disguise, his suggestions about what the Strangler could be disguised as first sound idiotic and just examples of SpongeBob being a fool. But with this new perspective in mind, he's really just trolling the Strangler and making him let his guard down. This is probably the least clear piece of evidence, but that's fine because there's a lot more. Throughout the Strangler's many Freudian slips and red flags, SpongeBob hardly even bats an eyelash. He doesn't even care when the Strangler picks him up and calls him Tattletale. Why? Because he already knows who the Strangler is. During SpongeBob's errands, he takes a really long time, to do simple tasks even after he said he'd be quick. Again, this could easily be a joke about SpongeBob being a bit foolish and too indecisive and not self-aware, but it could also just be him annoying the Strangler as much as possible. The scene where SpongeBob and the Strangler are locked out of the pineapple, of course, has the damning Freudian slip on the part of SpongeBob, but it also has SpongeBob pretending not to know where his key is just to rile up the Strangler, because why would he not just use the spare key he was aware of the entire time? Additionally, he wears cleats for no reason, which coincidentally ends up with those cleats in the eyes of the Strangler for 6 hours. Yeah, that was on purpose. I mean, did you see SpongeBob's face when he jumped? At first, the two surprise parties might seem like wholesome activities for the people of Bikini Bottom, but if you remember, SpongeBob asks how everyone knew this was his perfect attendance and his birthday, and Patrick says it was on the invitations he sent them. So these parties weren't surprise parties at all, which means SpongeBob purposely brought his bodyguard to his home, knowing that they wouldn't be alone, and knowing these parties would frustrate the guy to no end. Lastly, we have the entire chase scene between SpongeBob and the Strangler. On one hand, this is just SpongeBob being completely oblivious to both the fact that the Strangler is the Strangler and his distress. On the other, it's SpongeBob sealing the deal on landing the Strangler in jail while also taking his sanity with him. And here we come to my theory. See, I told you I'd get back to this. If you remember, earlier I said that SpongeBob handled the situation when the cops did not. And this is what I mean. SpongeBob didn't troll the Strangler just to troll him. He did it to get the exact outcome he got in the end, with the Strangler in jail and leaving him alone. Even one of the cops says that SpongeBob put the Strangler behind bars. With all of this evidence, I'm convinced that this is exactly what happened. Remind me not to mess with SpongeBob. He can use his foolishness as a weapon. SpongeBob Meets the Strangler is a really good episode that has clever, witty, multi-layered writing and jokes. It's really impressive how this episode has many different interpretations, and they all work. Honestly, I think this episode has some of the most brilliant writing in the entire show, and I'm serious. If you couldn't already tell with my minutes upon minutes of praise, this episode is easily in my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9.4 out of 10. Pranks-A-Lot is the very last episode of Season 3, and I think it's rather fitting as a closer. Or perhaps fitting isn't the right word. The Sponge Who Could Fly would have been fitting. This episode, it works as the end of the season. Maybe because it fights against the trend of this show to end seasons kind of poorly. Maybe it's because the title of this episode is a play on the phrase "thanks a lot," which kind of works as an ending phrase. Maybe that's how the show ending rumors got fed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me just start talking about this episode for real. Pranks-A-Lot is an episode that's really all about the gags, which is never something I'll be mad about. And I mean, it especially makes sense for this episode to be about gags, given that it's about pranks and all. I like the shop that the episode opens with, the Palace of Pranks. Having this shop here low-key does a little bit of world building, since we learn that there's a whole prank store in Bikini Bottom, and that SpongeBob is apparently a regular there. Again, I love reading into things, can't you tell? I also really like the character of Frank. He's got a lot of, well, character. Too bad we never see him again. I love all the little pranks that we see in this first part of the episode as well. Probably my favorite bit is the exploding gum and how Patrick's all like, I don't get it. And I wonder why the spray that literally makes you invisible is only $1 though. Like, damn inflation, taking away all of our fun. SpongeBob and Patrick's original idea for their prank is pretty cute. And I was surprised how out of the two of them it was Patrick who remembered the way or that the spray stains clothes. And speaking of that moment, I like the way SpongeBob was like, any particular reason you took your pants off? Like, he's not even all that concerned or even surprised, he's just like, why? I guess this is normal behavior from Patrick. Considering the amount of times that we've seen at least one of these two with their pants off, I guess I'm not all that shocked either. And then, of course, the main plot of the episode gets kicked into gear because of some childish fighting between SpongeBob and Patrick. You know, I just recently watched a rerun of the Battle of Bikini Bottom the other day. That episode kind of reminds me of this one with the same childish fighting. And in general, Pranks-A-Lot has a very childish feel to it because of the pranks. And I have no problem with episodes being childish, as long as the adult aspect is balanced somewhere. But also, I think that an episode being childish doesn't imply that the adult aspect is lost, since being childish implies, at least to me, that you aren't normally that way, because you're not a child, but I might be reaching. Anyway, SpongeBob and Patrick slowly turning each other invisible is pretty funny and enjoyable as well, and then soon we have two invisible best friends. But not before we get the glorious several bad puns later time card. I actually have a sticker of that time card on my computer. I love it. It's also funny because the title of this episode is literally a pun. Considering that this episode consists of SpongeBob and Patrick being invisible for a large chunk of it, Pranks-A-Lot is filled with some great visual gags. Firstly, SpongeBob and Patrick walking around invisible is pretty fun to watch, as the camera moves back and forth as if we can see them. And I guess that shows some pretty good animation directing. Is that what I'm referring to here? Just the animation camera work, I guess. I think it's neat how even though we can't see the characters, we can feel them there just from movements of the camera and the voice work. Anyway, the reactions of the whole town to SpongeBob and Patrick's ghost shenanigans are excellent. I really like Nat's reaction with his eyes coming out of his head and driving away. The scene at Sandy's Tree Dome is also funny with just the right amount of eerie and humorous atmosphere. That scene also inspired a very nostalgic YouTube poop for me, so that's always fun. As usual, that's linked down below. Good times, good times. And then the whole montage of the best friends pranking the entire town is great as well. I really loved the bit where it was like, ghosts, 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 toast, ghosts. I feel like I think of that joke all the time. Sandals stays unbothered. Speaking of comedic and eerie, I love the scene at the Krusty Krab. The vibes at the beginning are just fantastic, and the tension is held just long enough with Mr. Krabs trembling in fear in the dark, and then being cornered into the bathroom. Mr. Krabs' whole outfit is great as well. I love all the little detailed close-ups we get of it. The SpongeBob artists just do it again. SpongeBob and Patrick really put in a lot of effort for this last prank, and it shows. Sealing the doors shut, replacing the glass, clogging the toilet. Man, they really wanted to scare Mr. Krabs, and scare they did. At least, that's until he throws water on them because they were pretending to burn his money. And that's when the tables turn on the two best friends, caught butt naked. I love, again, how it's Patrick who's acting a little more sensible here as he realizes that they've been caught while SpongeBob is still caught up in the prank. I think it shows a bit about their characters that SpongeBob is more likely to get carried away with the pranking. And as I say that, I'm reminded of that one iCarly episode where Spencer got carried away with the pranking. Man, that was a good episode. You know, fuck Dan Schneider and Nickelodeon execs, but damn, that was a good show. The revival was really good too, and it pisses me off that it was canceled. Alright, now I'm the one getting carried away. Let me bring it back. So, the ending of this episode is a good bit of universal justice, brought in SpongeBob's direction for once, as Mr. Krabs exposes the duo and their nude selves as the Bikini Bottom ghosts. This ending shares a lot of similarities with the ending of Hooky, which you might remember I did not like at all, but I like this ending. There's a few reasons why it works here and not in Hooky. First off, this ending was far more deserved. SpongeBob and Patrick literally terrorized the town. In Hooky, SpongeBob was just playing on some hooks, hurting no one but himself. And more importantly, guess who isn't in the audience seeing SpongeBob and Patrick buck naked? That's right, teenagers and children. That was one of my main problems with the ending of Hooky. It was weird as fuck that it was Pearl and her friends being exposed to a naked grown man. But here, it's all adults. And the entire scene is treated quite adult, with the wolf whistles and such. It makes the ending funnier and not weird. Pranks-A-Lot is a fun little episode. There really isn't much to say about it. It's funny, perhaps not outstandingly so, but it's still funny. And it's satisfying too, because everyone gets what they deserve in the end. and the contrast between SpongeBob and Patrick's childish actions with the low-key adult joke the episode ends on is done really well. Thinking of the reception of this episode, I don't think it was hit by the season 3 obscurity beam, but I also don't consider it to be well known. It's kind of just right in the middle, and I feel like it's carried by the fact that it's the end of the season, and the sister episode is a better known episode. I would say that this episode generally lacks the wow factor required for it to enter my amazing tier, which is why it makes a good entry for my great tier, coming in with a score of 8.3 out of 10, ending season 3 off on a good note. As always, gotta end with some closing thoughts of mine. Hopefully y'all weren't expecting me to address the question I asked in my previous video, cause I won't be. I recorded that video and this video on the same day, so from my perspective, I haven't even asked y'all the question yet. Hopefully by the point of this video publishing, I will have made a decision though. Thinking back to the 2 episodes I've just reviewed, I mentioned in my review of Pranks a Lot that this show kinda has a trend of ending seasons on a low note, and at this point in the show, this wasn't actually a trend yet, given that season 2 ended on the fantastic squid on strike, along with Sandy, SpongeBob, and the Worm being right before. Season 1 did not end so well, with Hooky and Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2, an okay tier and good tier episode respectively, but when I made that comment, I was also looking towards the future, because to kind of spoil my thoughts on some future episodes, seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7, oh, kind of 7 and 8, all end on a bit of a low note. So really, that was just a middle-aged SpongeBob thing, I guess, but whatever, I said what I said. And yeah, I suppose that's all I've got to say. So looking ahead to the future, coming up next is my Season 3 overview video. I might publish that a week from today or on Wednesday, it just depends on some things. I'll let y'all know through the community posts though. And then I may or may not review the movie, depending on what y'all have said by the time this video comes out. And then after that will be Season 4. I'm not anticipating another hiatus between seasons, perhaps a short delay between videos depending on the release schedule for the Season 3 overview and the potential movie review, but we should be getting the Season 4 by mid-April at the latest. Alright, now that's everything. I'll see y'all in the Season 3 overview.